Really glad to have you here. If you just tuned in, stay for a while. We're just getting started. Now, look, the NBA regular season, it is over. It was incredibly exciting. A lot of highs, but it's time to talk about some of the lows, the top 5 disappointments of this NBA calendar year. At number 5, how about the Golden State Warriors' chemistry? What I've loved about the Warriors so much for nearly the last decade is on the court and off the court, they seemingly get along, particularly the likes of Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, Steph Curry. But remember the punch heard around the world. Draymond Green, bomb. Jordan Poole before the season, and next thing you know, what the Warriors have to brag about, that chemistry, actually ended up being a low light of the season. At number 4, Zion Williamson. We have been waiting patiently for him to get healthy. Y'all remember when he's healthy the last 2 seasons, he ended up being an all-star. But this season, he only played 29 of 82 games. He has missed 160-plus games since entering the league 4 years ago, and he's only played in 119. Come on, Zion, we hoping you get healthy. But until then, it's a disappointment when you're not. At number 3, Ja Morant. The reason I say Ja is not that there's not grace for mistakes. No, the reason I say Ja is because he was supposed to ascend and begin his process of becoming the face of the NBA after our current faces, they retire. But after the drama with Ja, not even on the court, off the court, oh, it was so disappointing. But at number 2, the Dallas Mavericks. They went to the Western Conference Finals last year. Luka to Don, balled out. Sent the Suns home. We thought they might be able to repeat that action. But next thing you know, they go from the 6th seed to all the way out of the playoff picture in just a matter of weeks, if not a month. Come on, Mavericks, disappointing. And finally, last but not least, I would be remiss if I did not mention the Brooklyn Nets. Remember how they started the season. We figured KD, Kyrie, Harden's gone. There isn't going to be drama. Surely the Nets are going to atone for last year's first round. Can't even get a W exit. But before we knew it, Kyrie and KD exited. To me, most disappointing. So my 5 disappointments of the season. The Warriors' chemistry. At 4, Zion Williamson. Ja Morant getting in trouble. The Mavericks. And last but definitely not least, the Brooklyn Nets collapse and debacle. Let me head to the desk. Dave Helman, you covered Dallas sports in half for the last 10 years. You are on top of all things sports in Dallas. You have the pulse of what's going on there. What was your biggest disappointment this season? Was it the Mavs? Was it the Nets? Where you at?
So you want me to say the Mavs. You want me to just throw the hometown team under the bus. And I'm not going to do it because guess what? Everybody else on your list, it's a good list, by the way. I mean, I like it. Everybody else is on their team. Everybody else on that list is still employed by the team that they started the season with, except Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant in Brooklyn. It has to be the Nets. Again, I said this back early in the spring. The Nets were at one point on the cover of the New Yorker. That's how hyped people were for this. That's the amount of star power. I think they were the number 4 team in the preseason championship odds. The only teams that had odds like them to win the title were the Warriors, the reigning champs, the Nuggets, who wound up being a 1 seed, the Bucks, who wound up being a 1 seed.
Good point.
Great teams. And where are the Nets? They're the 6th seed that nobody's talking about because their top 2 scorers from this season play for other teams now. The coach, Steve Nash, isn't there. Kevin Durant's not there. This all happened this year.
I forgot.
This all happened this year.
It seems like
in October.
2 years ago. Yeah.
In October, when we were, we're neck deep in NFL talk. The Nets started 2-6, and it was like a 5-alarm fire. It was like, are they okay? Are the Nets going to be fine? Can they still win the title? And now look where we are. It has to be the Nets. I won't accept any other answers. I just won't.
So, Joy, Dave won't accept any other answer, but you still have to submit one. What's your biggest disappointment this season?
Very compelling.
Thank you.
It was great. It was. I like your list also. It's very strong. And I think perhaps I would agree with you, but I've just put in that whole Nets experience behind me, and I don't feel like revisiting it. I got to be honest with you. I've had enough trauma.
It was not fun.
It was awful. It was awful. There's so many versions of the awfulness that went on in Brooklyn that I've moved on personally, and I don't like to revisit things whenever I put them to rest. So I'm not going to put them there. I am still involved and actively interested in this Mavs collapse. And I do think it is the Mavs also because they were in the Western Conference Finals last year. Luka is someone that we have put into a category of being a certified superstar in the league. And maybe perhaps we don't really get to determine who superstars are. You kind of have that value about you. It's not like the media needs to make you, but Yeah, like he was, he's better than LeBron. He's the best player in the league. He's better than Giannis. He's the future of the NBA. I don't like it. You gotta get the zoom in on the eyes whenever someone says that about Giannis with Emmanuel. This is a very disappointing.
The twinkle is
like
blinding.
it went away for a second. You don't want to hear nothing about that. It's got to be the Mavs, and also because I don't lay it so much at the feet of Luka and Kyrie. I do think that next year Luka is going to have to come in with a really adjusted mindset towards playing defense. I think he's going to need to come into the season in shape, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on Luka next year. However, this Kyrie thing sorts itself out, which I do think Kyrie will end up being there. But it was really organizational to me. If you're going to make a trade like that, put your guys in a position to be successful. You know you're giving away big defensive pieces. You're taking a big swing, which is great. But we all know that you weren't good defensively before you brought Kyrie in. He certainly wasn't, nor should he be expected to fill that void. So I feel like just organizationally, they took a big swing and didn't adjust everything and then let the expectations get out of control for a roster that really wasn't complete.
Yeah, so I actually don't have the Nets anywhere in my top 5, in part because I don't want to revisit it, but also because while I read The New Yorker, I don't go to it for my sports insight, and I love that cover. Also because I kind of expected that KD and Kyrie was eventually going to boom, right? So the fact that it did doesn't really surprise me, and the fact that they're still in the playoffs without those two since the trade deadline, to me, is actually kind of leavens the disappointment. And Mikal Bridges finding the uncut gem and what he's capable of being, I think that also minimizes that. I had a top 5 very quickly. Atlanta Hawks. 2 years ago, they were in the conference finals. Last year, first round. This year, play-in. They're a 500 team. They're headed in the wrong direction. Draymond Green cold-cocking. I put it really on Draymond Green, not just the Warriors. Their chemistry was fine until that happened, and that took it apart. The Dallas Mavericks, just because of where we thought they would be. But the Los Angeles Clippers, they're supposed to be where the Milwaukee Bucks are in the Eastern Conference. They have the most depth, the most talent. They spent as much money as the Golden State Warriors. The fact that they're the 5th seed and they're the underdog going up against the Phoenix Suns in the first round, like, that is a disappointment. But ultimately,
We got to revisit that.
Ultimately, it is what just transpired.
Which is?
Rudy Gobert will not be playing in the play-in game because he took a swing at Kyle Anderson, a teammate, in the final game of the season. Lest I remind you that they got Rudy Gobert because they made the play-in last year, and they said, you know what, no matter the enthusiasm in Minnesota, they're like, you know what, I don't know if we're going to ever win a championship with Rudy, but you know what? Rudy always got Utah to the playoffs, and we like being in the playoffs, so we're going to break the bank to get him. And can I remind you what they gave up
Please, I'm listening,
to get
Liz.
Rudy
I'm
Gobert? What
listening.
they gave up in order to not have Rudy Gobert for this ultimate, all-important play-in game. They gave up Walker Kessler, who is going to be number 2 among rookies for Rookie of the Year. They gave up Malik Beasley and Jared Vanderbilt. We know what they have done for the Lakers. They gave up Patrick Beverley, who we know what he's doing for the Chicago Bulls, as mid as you may think he is. And 4 future first-round picks for a guy who is not going to be able to play at the time of year that you got him for. How can anything be more disappointing than that?
You know what? Then you make a compelling point.
Incredible.
You make a compelling point, sir.
You said 4 future first?
4 future first-round picks. He can't even play. You're not even getting on the plane. Stay home. We'll talk to you if we end up having to go to New Orleans or Oklahoma City.
Oh, God.
Subscribe here to get the latest from Speak, and go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.